The first time I looked at my credit score was in the 400s. So I started being intentional in getting that score up because I knew one day I wanted to buy a house.
You grew up in New Orleans. You were there for Katrina.
The roof came off, the water came in and destroyed everything, right? That's why when I started out on this venture for me and my family personally, and I grabbed all of this information, then I started sharing it with people. That's why I got into real estate.
So now you're in Georgia. That's where you bought your first house.
Yep.
From the time you made the decision to buy your own home, what the steps were, what you went through.
Okay.
In life, there's a blueprint for everything. There's no need to start over. Hear from industry leaders, those at the top of their fitness journey, and real estate gurus. They tell you exactly how they did it. All you have to do is listen, learn, and execute. This is The Blueprint with Brad Rice.
All right, everybody. Welcome to our second edition of the Amerifund Loan Officer Spotlight. This is where we bring in loan officers from Amerifund to talk a little bit about themselves, what they're doing, how they're being successful, what they like to concentrate their energy on, and how they're helping people succeed in buying and refinancing homes. So today, we welcome Tammie Magee.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. And you flew in just for this yesterday.
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with telling everybody a little bit about yourself. You grew up in New Orleans.
Yep.
And then you were there for Katrina.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Left just in time.
Oh, you left just before. Okay,
yeah, just before.
That.
Yeah, just before we evacuated. What seemed like a regular routine. Like evacuate, chill with family, go back to our normal life. It changed, right? It was we couldn't go back. So
you were there when it was coming.
Yes.
And then they said, okay, it's time to evacuate. And you guys packed everything up and you left. Obviously, and pack your house.
No, we didn't think we needed to.
Yeah.
We went to Tylertown, Mississippi, chilled out with my aunt, and cousins, and thought we were going to just have a good time and go right back, and we couldn't go back.
Was it a total loss?
Man, listen, yes.
Yeah, like
Everything.
It was underwater?
Well, my particular apartment was not underwater. To get to the apartment was.
Okay.
We did endure some weather damage. The roof came off, the water came in and destroyed everything, right? But it didn't exactly flood in our property, but the neighboring communities did.
Yeah, what a mess.
Yep.
So you decided to stay. You had gone up to Georgia.
Yes.
And you decided to stay there.
Yes, my mom and dad was in Atlanta already. So we thought, okay, let's go to Atlanta, kind of get settled until everything calmed down. But we didn't know it wasn't going to really calm down.
Yeah.
And there's still remnants today of Katrina happening.
Yep.
So, yeah, we just decided to stay in Atlanta.
All right. So now you're in Georgia.
Yes.
And you're in Atlanta, and that's where you bought your first house.
Yep.
And this is before you got into real estate.
Yep,
right?
exactly. Yes.
So what I think would be really interesting for people to hear is exactly like what you did from the time you made the decision to buy your own home, what the steps were, like who you talked to, what you went through, what kind of loan you applied for, like as much detail as you can.
Okay.
My advice for someone selling their home: number 1, do it yourself and save. Number 2, use HomePie.
HomePie makes it easy to buy or sell without an agent. I can list a home in minutes and start receiving offers right away from buyers.
When we discovered that we didn't have to lose $40,000 in agent commission just to upsize to a larger home, it was an obvious choice.
List your home for free at homepie.com. Keep your piece of the pie.
So when I decided that, hey, I want to buy a house one day, I started to get my credit together. That was the first thing. Being a student, taking on loans in community colleges, and being a young mom at the time, getting behind in some student loan payments or whatever. The first time I looked at my credit score was in the 400s. It was in the 400s. So,
by the way, guys, that's very low. That's about as low as you can get. I maybe saw 300s one time before.
Yes, it was in the 400s, but it was only in the 400s because of student loans that I had allowed to, get default or whatever, right? So I really didn't have any other credit that I established because we paid for everything in cash. We didn't know to make a trail, right? And I say we didn't know because some of these things that we weren't taught early, like some of my family did own property, but they didn't tell us how they purchased property, right? So being a young mom again, living, taking care of the family, and enrolling into college, withdrawing, getting behind in student loans. The first time I looked at it was in a 400 credit score.
Yeah.
So I started being intentional in getting that score up because I knew one day I wanted to buy a house. So anything that I did do that required credit, I did not let a negative hit again. Even if I could not, like life happened and I could not make that payment immediately, I did not let it go beyond 30 days. I was very, very intentional with that.
So the experience you had where your credit was low, you were thinking about buying a house, that really put you on a path to having good credit, and
Yes.
you learned on your own.
Yes,
So
I
I
taught
think
myself.
that's a common problem that people have. If you don't come from a family that kind of ingrains this with you early, say even before you become 18, talks to you about how to build credit, what it means to have credit, what it means to pay off your bills at the end of every month and not let them ride and pay these exorbitant interest rates, 20, 25, 30%. The schools aren't teaching it,
No,
right?
no.
And the financial literacy just is not taught, unfortunately.
And my family, they did it. They had it. It just wasn't a regular conversation.
Right.
Like my grandparents, my grandfather owned his home. My uncles owned their home. My grandmother, she always had credit cards. She bailed everybody out of their situation, right? Most people who do take care of their bills regularly, they just don't care about credit. It seems to be like a ploy, a plot, the American way, just trying to take something from us, right? But we need credit.
You do.
That's
need
the way
credit
we
for
scale.
just about anything.
Yeah, that's the way we scale. We need to use their money to build our money.
That's absolutely perfect. You're absolutely right. All right. So you decide, I'm going to buy a house. You start getting your credit in order. And then when did you actually make that decision? What were the first steps?
So one of my friends, she was purchasing a home. We were all like kind of inquiring about it at the same time. And I said, hey, I'm not ready. And she went ahead and got pre-approved. I was helping her with the process and picking out a house or whatever. And she said, this loan officer is dope. I like her. She's down to earth. Give her a call. I gave her a call, and she called me back a couple hours later and said, yeah, you're ready. I was like, oh, okay.
Okay. So where did this person work?
Bank of America.
Okay. So they worked at a bank.
Yes.
And, obviously you're in the business now. You know all the different types of people that are in the mortgage business, where you can get loans.
Yes.
But let's finish talking about your experience with that. And then what I'd like to do is kind of compare and contrast that to what you are today, which is a mortgage broker.
Yes.
So you talk to this banker and she says, you're ready.
Yes.
So you sent her documents.
I sent her documents. I applied, sent her documents, kind of set back, like nonchalant. If it happens, it happens. If it don't, it don't, right?
Yeah.
And she called me back, told me that I was approved. Okay. In comparing that to my process now, she presented to me approval with an exact way to go. She didn't give me options, right? Not saying what she did was bad, but I wasn't as informed.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You weren't educated through the
I wasn't
process.
educated. It was like, oh, you're approved. Let's go, right? Like, this is my chance, right? Almost like it was luck instead of I strategically conquered this process and let me apply the way I wanted to apply, right? She just gave me a go.
Okay.
And I went with the way that she told me.
Yeah, and I think, look, that's, we can talk a little bit about the difference between being a broker and being a banker, or what we call retail. That's somebody who just offers product from their specific lending institution. And the biggest differences there are, you are a licensed representative. You have to be licensed not only in the state that you look to originate loans in, but also through the National Mortgage Service,
Yes.
Which is NMLS.
Yes.
And so you have to go through training every year and testing every year to keep that license in place.
Yes.
When you work for a bank, you don't have to do that. You just register.
Yeah.
And so you do bank training, but you don't have kind of that experience and the knowledge that mortgage brokers have, because we have to know all the products that are out there. We have to know how to steer somebody into the right product for them, but then educate them, like you said,
Yes.
to understand why that's the right product. Why am I applying for an FHA loan? Why am I applying for a conventional loan or down payment assistance
Yes.
or whatever the situation is? So you didn't feel like you were empowered with the education side of it.
No, I didn't know that I had options. I just thought, oh, you're approved.
Yeah.
Right? And I had to just kind of follow suit. It worked for me, but now that I know what I know, there were options that could have been presented to me if I did not want to deplete my savings at that time to use for down payment assistance.
Right.
My down payment. I could have went with this route. I could have had a different interest rate. I could have asked for more concessions to buy down the interest rate. I didn't know.
Yeah, you didn't have any of those options.
I had none. Just, you're approved. Go shop.
So my guess is that experience that you went through on your own and the gaps you saw there has really kind of helped you to form the way that you operate your business today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've always been resourceful. That's why when I started out on this venture for me and my family personally, and I grabbed all of this information, then I started sharing it with people.
Yeah.
That's why I got into real estate.
All right. So, okay. So you bought your house. Is that still, by the way, do you still have that
Yes,
same place?
I do.
Okay.
And
So
it's paid off.
It's paid off.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Nice. I love it. So you expedited that.
Yeah,
You paid.
I
Okay.
did.
Very good. We'll talk about that too. Okay. But before we do,
Maybe I shouldn't have
when
said
you
that on
decide to get when you decide to get into real estate, you didn't get into mortgages.
No, not initially.
Yeah.
It was as an agent.
As a real estate agent.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
why?
I love everything about house and home. My first thought was, honestly, the mortgage side was a little bit intimidating. But I'm a student of anything that I do, right? But why real estate first? It was helping people to go through that process. That's the process that I went through initially, right? Helping people to go through that process. My radar didn't turn on with loans until I became an agent. And loan officers overcommitted.
Okay.
So that's when the radar came on. I've had other partners. This was our conversation. Loan officers, they don't answer the phone, and they say they can do it and they can't. The conversation was just very disappointing. So of my team, I have a partner and friend who would playfully call me her broker because we would bounce off of each other all the time. And I used to ask everyone in the circle, hey, somebody need to become the loan officer. And during COVID, she looked at me, she said, my broker, you need to do it. And I
Okay.
went and did it. So I am each of their partnering loan officer now.
Okay. Now you
Yes.
work with those same agents
Yes,
that
I
you
do.
were colleagues with.
Yes.
So, okay. So let's talk about that for a second. So what would you say the worst nightmare is for a real estate agent?
The worst nightmare well,
I'd say if you're considering joining the Amerifund team, it's a really good idea.
We as processors at Amerifund Home Loans support the loan officers in every aspect of the loan once it comes into processing because we want them out there marketing themselves and originating more loans and supporting more borrowers.
Competitive commission plans are a given, and powerful technology is expected, but what truly sets us apart is our culture. We've built a solid support system for our loan officers. If you're interested in joining the Amerifund team, go to amerifund.com/careers.
not being truly educated on your options as a real estate agent and how you can save clients. When I first started out, some of the information that was presented to me as your what to tell clients during buyer consultations, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not all inclusive. You're leaving a lot out because they don't know.
Yep.
They don't know. Listen, yesterday I met with, over the phone, another agent in Cali, right? She never heard of a broker, loan officer.
Interesting.
She's been in the business for 20 years.
Isn't that odd?
You know how many clients she may have turned away?
Yeah.
I just had a client yesterday who doesn't have a credit score. It's fine.
Yep.
We can do it.
That's right. That's a good point. When you work with just an individual that works for one institution, let's say a bank like Bank of America, they have limited options.
Yes.
They're not doing what we call non-QM loans, which is the new way that we say subprime.
Yes.
They're not doing loans that just ask for bank statements. They're not doing loans where credit scores are really low. They're not doing loans where you may be self-employed for less than a year.
Yes.
We have these options on the wholesale side of the business
Yes.
where you don't when you just work for one institution. So if you're a real estate agent and you're working with a mortgage lender
Yes.
that doesn't have those options,
Yes.
then you're shortchanging your customers
Yes.
and you're turning people away, and you don't need to.
Right.
Or you're postponing their ability to buy now into something where they have to buy later because they have to change their profile
Yes.
to meet the needs of the bank.
Yes.
So yeah, this is a good point, because there's not an easy way for you to explain what a broker is until the real estate agent's gone through the experience of having somebody that is flexible and can do any type of loan.
Yes, I
Right?
sat in a real estate CE course recently, and the broker of that office was sharing some of the highlights of their in-house lender. And I didn't want to overstep, but a lot of the information they were saying was incorrect. Imagine all of those agents in there if they spoke with a mortgage broker, loan officer like myself. And like I tease and say, no borrower left behind, right? They can build their pipeline. They don't have to turn anybody away or discourage anyone.
Right. Yeah, and the thing is also, Tammy, that if you've got someone that maybe isn't the perfect credit profile, and they're getting a loan that's not as appealing as if they had good credit or they had good income that we could track, or they didn't have to go with a bank statement type loan. Yeah, they could wait. They could wait. They could put together the right scenario for themselves to qualify for a better loan. But isn't it better for them to purchase today, begin to build up equity, because property values have gone up year over year, decade over decade for a long time, get in now and then get their credit in order and then get their situation in order and refinance when rates are better?
I think sometimes the media and agents, they're taught to push out rates. Rates are not the only factor. And the rates on houses is far less than the rates on credit cards and cars and everything else that we try to get, right?
That's right.
It's not going to stop us. The holidays are coming up. They're not going to stop shopping for the holidays. Credit card interest rates right now are 24 and 19 to 29% right now. The housing interest rates right now is anywhere between 6 and 7. If you have to do a 9QM, you may go up to a 9, depending on your profile. But it's not even an exact rate. It's based on a profile. And they don't understand that. Not only the clients, but the agents don't either.
That's right. That's right. So that's why you're here.
So our
to
job
educate
is
people.
to educate the agents, but the agents are afraid sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think this goes into our credit reports, because with our process, when the client applies, they may have to pay for a credit report fee, right? So we don't have to absorb that cost. But the advantage that they're going to have by having their full profile assessed, by being presented with options instead of being told by one particular bank yes or no, and not knowing options, is way more advantageous.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thinking about that just a little deeper, when they go through the process with somebody like yourself, one of the first things we want to do is pull a credit report. And typically we'll do it as a soft credit report, and that way you don't have a hard inquiry that affects your credit score, but you also don't have all these companies that just will start calling you, right? Because as soon as you have a hard pull on your credit, everybody that gets alerted to this starts calling you, and it's not a pleasant experience. But the benefit of getting that credit report up front, like you said, when you're pulling it with a mortgage broker, is that we have the options. You only have to do it the one time.
Yes.
So if you get that done through, let's say, a bank. Let's just say a bank says, yes, we'll get you pre-approved, and we don't charge you for your credit report. Well, guess what? You only have their loan programs. So if you don't qualify, or if you don't find that you're getting the best rate or the best program for your needs, you got to redo it anyway.
Yes.
Now you have another time that you have to get it pulled. And the reason that the rates are not as competitive through these lenders that don't charge for those credit reports up front is because they're paying for that for every single borrower that comes to them that wants to get approved. Well, if they're increasing their cost to originate those loans, guess who it gets passed on to ultimately is the borrower.
Yes.
So by us kind of filtering through, you're going to have a lot of people that you talk to, a lot of credit reports that get pulled before you actually get somebody who qualifies for a loan, is ready to buy, and actually does buy a home right away. And you're not increasing the cost of originating by everybody you speak with, so you can deliver a lower rate, lower fees, and better loan to your customers.
Yes. And we also have the advantage of it also is that because when I worked in a retail environment, once we pulled that credit report, that was it.
Yeah, that's true.
That was it.
That's true. You can't
Right?
re-pull it.
You can't keep re-pulling it, you know.
Yeah.
So now you have an opportunity to resolve some things if there's some things that need to be resolved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a broker,
As a
we can
broker,
pull your credit report
listen.
multiple times. We can work on your credit. We can get you with credit repair, get your scores up, and re-pull it.
Yeah.
But like you said, if you work with a retail company,
In
and
some
you pull
environments,
that,
you cannot re-pull it.
That's
and
it.
you're only subject to not only the foundational guidelines, but also their overlays.
Yeah.
So as in my case, when I was told yes, I really was kind of nonchalant about it. Had she told me no, I probably would not have purchased. I would not have been interested in shopping other lenders because this was a reputable company.
Yeah.
Right? So they told me no, why would I continue to shop? Now I'm discouraged, right?
Yeah.
So, and I wouldn't be in a situation I'm in today.
That's a really good point. All right, let's talk about the types of loans that you provide. So you're doing FHA loans?
Yes, FHA, conventional, non-QM,
Okay.
VA.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's talk about the FHA loans for a minute, because
Okay.
you can couple those with down payment assistance.
Yes, I can.
So what is down payment assistance?
Down payment assistance, it can be a grant, forgivable or repayable. Down payment assistance isn't always beneficial, right?
Okay.
So when I have conversations with clients who suspect that they need it, right? Because sometimes they don't know, they just hear it, right? When I have these conversations, I present both options. Hey, you are pre-approved. If you want to utilize down payment assistance, you're pre-approved for $450,000. You may have to go down to $410,000, right? Maybe not that aggressive, but I got to kind of be a conservative, right? Because there's a increased interest rate sometimes on down payment assistance, so you're going to qualify for less. And there may be a subordinate note, so you have to pay an additional fee to pay back this loan, and you can qualify for more if you have the money and you can just front the money. If you're wanting them to front the money in this down payment assistance, you have to pay for it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it may be appealing to somebody to get down payment assistance to help with that down payment.
Yes.
But if they're not told, if they don't know, they're actually paying a premium interest rate, or there's an additional cost to it, they may think that it's all really great, where they may have had a resource through a gift or, some other savings account that they didn't want to touch, that in the long run would have been better for them.
Yes.
So-
As a matter of fact, especially during Hurricane Katrina, going back to that, there was a lot of programs that offered down payment assistance. But when those individuals sold that equity, they had to share it. Right? So if you had equity and you had to split it 50% with the state, wow.
So some down payment assistance programs are grants.
Yes.
And they're forgivable.
Yes.
And others may
Repayable.
require equity share.
Yes.
And others may be payable upon sale or
Yep.
sometime before that?
Upon sale.
Okay.
Sale. Some of them may be forgivable after a period of 5 or 10 years. Some require you to live in certain areas. So I'm not against it. I just want to present the options, and then what you choose is the way we're going to proceed. Sometimes I've had to do the math with clients and say, hey, this down payment assistance is $15K. Let's go ahead and if you want to use it, this is what it would look like. And in 8 months, if you want to refinance, there's going to be a fee with refinancing, right? But instead of you absorbing a $15K out of your pocket, you want to use their money, then this is what it would look like.
Yeah.
And then they decide, right? So I don't push, I educate.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes.
So it's probably easy to say that all down payment assistance programs are not created equal.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Very good. So I love it. That's very helpful for people to know this is something that's an option, but not always the best option.
Correct.
What if you're a veteran?
Oh, vets have 100% loan, great options. If seller is giving closing costs, even better. We even have a down payment assistance coming up for veterans now. I think it's going to launch on Tuesday. So
Tell us what you know about that.
So the loan itself is still a 100% product, right? And typically, either vets will have some closing costs associated with it, and sellers can cover it. They can give a closing cost concession to cover it, or vets will kind of pay for it themselves. There's a down payment assistance program now to help with those closing costs in the event sellers don't want to pay for it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Is that in the wake of what's happened with the real estate changes
I
for
believe so.
commissions and the NAR lawsuits and all that sort of
I
thing?
believe so.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
that's my opinion. It's not fact-based or anything, but I think the temperature has changed with sellers giving concessions because of the conversations and the fear tactics that's out. I believe personally it is in the best interest of a seller to give concessions,
Yeah.
right? Because you want somebody to buy your home.
Yeah, there's a lot of conjecture on this going around the internet right now. You know, the changes that are taking place in real estate are pretty dramatic. Since the NAR lawsuits and the settlements, and now the DOJ has accepted a lot of these settlements, buyers have to contract directly with their agents
Yes.
and negotiate that fee.
It's always been that way.
Well, it's been that way, but that's not the way it's been portrayed.
Correct.
So real estate agents on the buyer's side have traditionally said for decades that their services are free.
Correct.
The seller pays for them.
Correct.
Which we know, if you're a seller, you're looking at what you're netting after costs on your sale. And so if one of those costs is paying the agent fees on both sides, you're going to want more money for your property.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. And so is the buyer paying for it? Yeah, through a higher purchase price.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So the same thing kind of exists. So the way I kind of explain to sellers today is that, yes, you're signing an agreement just to pay the listing agent fee when you hire an agent. You should be open to all offers that are made by buyers with and without agents.
Yes.
And just look at the merits of the offer. If the offer is higher and that buyer needs you to cover some agent fees, but you're netting more, then why not do it? It may actually be an easier transaction because the buyer has somebody leading them through that process. Why would you make a decision up front on how much you're willing to pay a buyer's agent, or whether you're willing to or not?
Right.
Just accept all offers.
Yes.
It's pretty simple.
Because you're lessening your pool of buyers.
That's right.
Qualified buyers. And you should want to accept offers from a broker.
That's right.
Because now your chances of your deal staying alive is higher.
Yeah.
Right? So that's another thing. Agents need to educate their clients and clients need to understand the value of working with a mortgage broker.
Yeah.
Life happens. If a buyer is under contract and life happens, we may need to change from a lender who is doing an automatic approval to a manual underwrite. Having that option in-house with me is going to make it work and a deal that's going to stay alive.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. Look, I've always been an advocate for buyer's agents. I think they bring a lot more value to the table than listing agents do.
Well,
Well, here's why. Let me
Okay.
explain why I say
Okay.
that, okay? Are you a tech investor looking to shape the future of real estate? HomePie is the #1 for sale by owner marketplace, and we are revolutionizing the way homes are bought and sold. I'd love to hear from you. Just email invest@homepie.com and let's chat. Now back to the show. Over the course of the last 15 years, let's just say, this started with the advent of Zillow, the Zestimate. Now there's all sorts of ways to kind of get an idea of what your property is worth. You can see what your neighbors sell their properties for. You can see the difference between their properties and your property. You can see the interior photos. You can see what they've done, the descriptions, what they sold for, all those things. It's all public data now.
Okay.
So if you're sitting in your house and you're like, what is my house worth? Do you really need a real estate agent to tell you what it's worth? Now, considering you're in an area where there are other sales, you're not in some remote area where it's really tough to tell and it's a unique property, but you're in a property where there's other like sales that are nearby. There's other condos or other homes that are similar size and that sort of thing. You can pretty much determine what your house is worth and whether it's worth maybe a little bit more or less than a neighbor's. Now, if you're going to be realistic about it or not, it's another thing.
Okay.
But you pretty much know what your house is worth.
Well, to be fair, the data and the way that it's used even what we're seeing right now with these companies having to deplete their assets now because they were overvalued. You know, clients don't know how these homes was purchased. They don't know if it was purchased with cash, if it was an FHA loan. They don't know the determining factor in which the pricing was reached, right? It takes a real estate agent to kind of dive in and give them a little bit more intricate details than what's online.
You bring up a good point.
Yes.
There may be some nuances to the sales that happen in
Yes.
the area that may have caused, maybe there was a divorce and it was a forced sale, or it was probate or things of this nature. A lot of that you can tell from the descriptions when you read it. And frankly, not all agents are created equal.
No.
So not every real estate agent
Right,
that's
right.
listing that property is going to go through the
Right.
research and figure that out and explain it. To your point of the way that you got into the mortgage business,
Yes.
you weren't happy with the way you were educated or the lack of
Correct.
education. No, the same thing exists there. So the reason I say that I'm a bigger advocate for the buyer side agent is I think they bring a lot more value to the table. And here's why. Typically, you're working with a first-time transaction. On the sell side, they've already been through it once.
Okay.
Right? So you're working with somebody, a lot of times it's never been through it before. So you need somebody to guide you through that process, somebody that you can trust, somebody that you can ask questions of, somebody you can get answers from to guide you through, number one. Number two, if you're moving to an area that you have not lived in before, you're unfamiliar with it, you can only do so much research online. You need somebody with boots on the ground that understands neighborhoods, that understands this side of the railroad tracks better than that side. Hey, you want a neighborhood where kids are 10 and 12 like your kids? You've got to go over to this neighborhood. There's all these nuances that are not really things that you can research online. Your local agent that knows that area is going to be able to help you and guide you through that process. Otherwise, can you imagine if I was buying a home in Atlanta, and I've been there a couple of times, I've traveled there, but I wouldn't even know where to start, what neighborhood to look in, what city, if I want, certain things that are not, that you're not able to look up online, that are not like walking scores or where the closest coffee house is, like those things you could figure out, but more like the feel of a neighborhood that I'd be happy in, I'd have to fly back and forth like a dozen times to figure that out. So I think on the buyer's side, not only does that agent, the buyer's agent, give you that local knowledge and help guide you through that process, especially if you've never been through it before, but they're also the one to guide you in the hands of somebody like yourself that's going to take care of them on the financial side and do the exact same thing. Instead of you leaving it to luck and just getting a referral from somebody at work or somebody that you know.
Yeah. There's a lot of intricate details on all sides, because everyone needs to be educated more than what's just available online. There's levels to it.
There are definitely levels to it. I do agree with you. So there's levels to just about everything.
Yes.
All right. So now you're in the mortgage business.
Yes.
And you are licensed in what states?
In the state of Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, Virginia, California.
Wow, did you get it? All right. By the way, everybody, to be licensed as a broker, not somebody who works for a bank and just gets a stamp from being a worker for the bank, that's a lot of work.
Yes.
And it's a lot of work every year to keep that up.
Yes,
so I
it
commend you for that. And so what you're talking about here is Tammy is a true professional.
Yes.
And you take this business seriously.
Very much
and
so.
your clients are probably lucky to get introduced to you because you're able to really help them and really explore what the best options are for them. What else do you want to cover today?
Is this business, even for real estate professionals right now that's considering becoming a loan officer or even coming to the broker side, I would highly recommend that they come to or consider a company where the opportunities to learn is vast. That's a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are some brokers who still operate from the retail mindset. You need to see options. You need to see, okay, which lender, what rates, what lender, what's the pricing. You need to understand all of that instead of someone just giving you one option. So the same way all agents are not the same, all loan officers are not the same either.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point. And you've worked elsewhere.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. And so you have a little bit of compare and contrast.
Yes.
You know, being that, my history is as a loan originator, I think that we've created an environment where there's a lot of transparency. You make the decisions. You do the things that are going to help your client out, and you decide where to put their loan. We're not deciding where to do that. You have all options available to you. If there's a lender that we're not approved with, and you feel they've got a product that makes sense for a particular borrower, we'll get approved with them. And it's pretty simple. It's pretty quick. So these are the things that if I was an originator and I was looking for a company, that's what I would want. And that's the environment we've created here. On the education side, we do training every day of the week.
Yep.
And you've been a benefactor of that.
Yes.
We also help you with licensing.
Yes.
You've been a benefactor of that.
Yes.
So I thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, you got to be in an environment that's supportive, that wants to see you grow, that does things that are in your best interest, that enable you to be doing the same things for your clients in their best interest.
Correct.
So yeah, we're super glad that you joined us.
Thank you.
You are really doing it, and we are so excited for what 2025 brings for you.
I appreciate it. I really, really do.
Yeah,
my clients do as well. Like
right
my team is no way that you can work in this environment by yourself. You need a strong team.
You do. That
you can call upon. And not to say that any other team was bad, but when you get into a position of needing to scale, you have to have a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're here for you.
Yes.
And you are going to do it. You are already doing it.
Thank you so
much.
much.
But 2025 is going to be a big, big year for you.
Yes.
And we're here to support your growth.
I'm ready for it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for coming in.